Earning money is important. After all, we need money to survive, buy food, and put a roof over our head. How we spend the money we earn is very crucial because overspending can lead us to debt and prevent us to save for our retirement. And if you don't have money for retirement, then you're going to work until you saved enough to retire, or until your body cannot work, or the worst case scenario, until you take your last breath. Nobody wants to work when they're old, and the older you get, harder it will be to work because our body will never be the same as when it was young. So that's why it's important to save money while we're young. But you don't want to save all the money you make because we also want to have fun. After all, you can't do things when you're older because some things your body can't handle or do when you're older. So how can you save and have fun at the same time? Well, it's all come down to budget. Budget will get you the answer you need, and how you manage your budget will determine everything in your life, or that's what I believe. So let's talk about budget in this episode. But before we begin, I'd like to welcome and thank everyone for checking out this channel, Investment for Beginners, where I talk about investment, retirement, and a touch of finance. My primary goal is to share my knowledge and passion in investment to achieve better retirement than most average people. Just solely depending on 401k and Social Security is not enough in my book. Not to mention, if this is the path that you want to take, you'll most likely have to work until 65. If we can invest better and smarter to build bigger retirement nest, then we can consider early retirement. And depending on how big the retirement is and how your budget is, you can retire at 60, 55, or even 50 years old. So if you're interested, make sure to check out the other video where I go over investment and retirement. And if you found any of the video useful or insightful, consider sharing it with your friends and family so hopefully we can all achieve better and bigger retirement than most average people. And consider subscribing so you won't miss out on future videos, and super smashing the like button is always appreciated. Budget is something that we probably never had to deal with until we started making money and pay bill. But it becomes more crucial part when you want to save the money too. You have bills you have to pay, money you want to spend for yourself, and to save some for retirement. Well, how do you do it? The popular rule of thumb for saving is 50, 30, 20. What this means is that 50% of your income goes to paying for all the necessity like rent, grocery, utility, transportation, any debt, insurance, and etc. 30% of your income is for basically however you want to spend. It is your fun money. Money you spend to make yourself happy. I do want to mention that for me, going out to eat is considered fun money and not a necessity. So if you're a person that likes to go out and eat often, you should put this under 30% fun money categories. And lastly, 20% of your income goes into saving or investment. This 50, 30, 20 budget rule of thumb is what you might come across often when you try to search how to budget your money. First thing I want to mention is that depending on how much your income is, 50, 30, 20 will not be the best method. If you make $2,000 a month and your necessity expense is more than $1,000, then you can see that this 50, 30, 20 is not gonna work perfectly, and you will need to lower your fun money to make up for your necessity expense. But on the other hand, if you make $2,000, but if your necessity is only $500, then you can use that extra leftover money to your fun money or your saving. Now, if you don't make enough income, I will recommend sacrificing your 30% fun money to prioritize your necessity and then fulfilling 20% saving. And if you have any leftover after all that, whatever remaining amount should be used for your fun money. Now, for some people, this is gonna be unacceptable or very hard to change because you will feel like you're living your life without any fun and joy, and that defeats the purpose of life, which is to enjoy and have fun. You don't want to just work and save your whole life until retirement. And I agree. So how can we go around to resolve this? Well, you may not going to like it, but you have two choices. Either find ways to make more money, whether that means you had to find another job that pays better or working second job, or you need to reconsider where you live and how much you spend on necessity. Now, I didn't mention anything about cutting out the saving because as a channel that focuses on retirement, saving is very essential because without money saved to invest, there is hardly going to be any retirement. But I hope we can find a middle ground where there is a solution as we continue with the videos. Now, making more money or having second job is not the main topic of this video, and they are pretty straightforward, so I'm gonna focus on what you need to sacrifice to make that 50% necessity manageable to fit in your budget. First is your rent. This should be the biggest consumption in your 50% necessity, and only way to bring this down lower is for you to find a cheaper place. That most likely means you need to go below your standard. You may need to live further away from your work where the city is much smaller. You may need to live in a place that does not have modern remodel or outdated place. You may need to live in an area where the place is close to a ghetto area. You may even need to live in a city that is less safer than the other. Depending on where you live, you will be able to save hundreds per month. Even in Southern California, depending on how much further you live away from Los Angeles and Orange County area, like in Riverside, Corona, or even Ontario, you can save few hundred a month while still living within a reasonable driving distance to LA region. The major downside is the time consumption for the travel distance. Next necessity you want to consider is car. Probably your main source of transportation unless you use public transportation. If you're spending big amount on car payment monthly, you need to consider buying a used, cheap, reliable car that you can spend $1,000 or $2,000 and not spend any monthly payment. You can try looking onto online website like OfferUp or local neighborhood who has their car sales sign up on the car. You can consider buying a car from the local dealership, but that's monthly payment you have to commit and it may not save you much compared to buying a new car. After making these changes and you're still struggling to fit your budget, then your next step is to change your 30% self-treating fund money. Instead of 30%, you might want to lower it down to 20% and prioritize cutting out the most expensive costs first. Hopefully by cutting out the most expensive costs, that will cover the 50% necessity and still keep remaining activities or funds for yourself. Or you may want to start with the cheapest cost and continue from the bottom of the list to the top until you can cover the 50% necessity. Or simply cut from the least favorite to most desire. There's different ways you can approach to cut money from your 30% fund money, but that is something that only you can decide. As mentioned before, saving is crucial and I would not recommend cutting 20% saving to satisfy your 30% fund money. The reason why I pushed so hard for the saving is because back in 2008 and 2009, my parents lost the house and the car under their name from the bankruptcy. They were smart with the money, never overspending on unnecessary, but the business just could not survive the recession. So even with disciplined mindset of money handling, our family faced great financial loss. This opened my eye to be smart with my money. One thing I vowed was to never let my future children and wife to experience what my parents went through. The fight and struggle, the emotional toll and despair. So ever since I started working, I always saved more than I spent and spent almost nothing while I was living with my parents except for phone bill, insurance, and car payment. And of course, enough money to max out the Roth IRA contribution every year since 2016. Before that, I just saved all my money in my saving account. If only I started investing back in 2008 and 2009 when every stock was basically at the lowest. Alright, going back to the topic, everyone's budget is going to be different, especially if you have a child. There's going to be more necessity to spend to accommodate for a child and the time it will take away to take care of the child. But at the end, everyone has budget they work with and to make sure to stay above being in debt. If 50, 30, 20 does not work for you because your necessity takes 60 or 70%, then you will need to improvise by making some sacrifice, or else you will dig yourself into a hole where it will be harder and harder to get out. It sucks, and being in a financial hardship sucks. So let's start small by making small changes at a time. And hopefully as time goes by, the small changes we made will make snowball effect that will help us reach financial independent freedom. And that first step is your decision to make budget to control where your money is going. That's gonna be it for this video, and if you sticked around to this end, thank you so much for watching. If you have different budget system, feel free to share in the comment section below. I know my budget is not quite close to 50, 30, 20. In fact, it might be the other way around. So make sure to stick around to see how my budget system is when I make that in future video. I wish you all best of luck in your journey to reach the financial independent freedom, and as always, invest wisely.